This is the year. I think Bobby Wood Jr. wins the MVP.
Love it. I'm not talking you off that one.
Which is, no, he's gotten better at pretty much everything every year in the big leagues. One Royal Way back at it here on Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Joel Penfield. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Opening day right around the corner. Finally, we have made it. Today, we're going to do a predictions episode for Royals and Major League Baseball as a whole. Joining me to do that, Peter Appel, Just Baseball Media and the Just Baseball Show, not gambling advice throughout the season as well. Three-time guest now on the show, I believe. So thank you for coming back on. I know you're busy traveling, but how you doing, man?
Absolutely, man. It's always good to be on this show with you, Joel. Right now I'm in Florida. I live in New York City, but down here for spring training. And then tomorrow I head up to Cincinnati. So I'll be at Great American Ballpark for Reds versus Giants and then flying back to New York City. It's a whirlwind, but that just means baseball's on the horizon. It's perfect.
Oh, Cincinnati for opening day. That's got to be like a bucket list thing. Like, that's awesome.
Absolutely. And BetMGM has a sports book down there. They're our sponsor. So it's going to be a blast, putting in all of our futures and then hanging out with all the Reds fans. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but it's right outside the stadium. It just gets packed with fans. It's going to be awesome.
That's going to be really, really cool. So like I said, we're going to do predictions for the Royals, superlative type stuff. If you've been following the show for a while, we did this last year, the last couple of seasons, and then we'll do awards predictions, and then who we think is going to make the playoffs and win the World Series. Before we do that, the show, as always, brought to you by Emprise Bank, our partners at Possible. Remember, FDIC, huge supporters of KC Sports Network and this podcast. We can't thank them enough for that support. Very quickly, Peter, I'm curious your thoughts on the Royals offseason and anything you've seen from them in spring training. What do you think about this team going into 2025?
I'm excited. We were actually talking on the Just Baseball Show about the addition of Jonathan India and how important I think it's going to be. And it's funny, I've said this before, but it did seem like over the past couple of seasons, if you turn on a Royals game 5 minutes late, it's 1 out and Bobby Witt Jr. is up.
Yep.
Getting a guy like Jonathan India, who has posted an on-base percentage above 350 multiple years, him getting on first base, like Bobby Witt Jr. set a career high in walk rate last year at 8%, but you almost don't really want Bobby Witt Jr. walking too much. You want him swinging the bat. But why wouldn't you walk Bobby Witt Jr. if there's 1 out and all you got to deal with is the end of the lineup as well, right? So I think that Jonathan India in front of Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be big for the lineup. And I've already really liked the rotation. I like, the addition of Carlos Estevez in that bullpen. We were just doing our division previews, and I said the Royals have the best value in the betting market to win the American League Central. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on your show.
I love that. Though I'll talk about Jonathan India here in a little bit, but I just cannot get the stat out of my head. Bobby Witt Jr. went up to the plate 709 times last year, 709 plate appearances. He came up with the bases empty 580 times. That is an absurd number. So just getting somebody on base in front of him it makes a difference for the entire lineup. I think it changes the complexion of the lineup. Just getting one dude makes a massive difference.
Absolutely.
So listen, we know Bobby Witt Jr. is probably going to be the best hitter in this lineup. I'm curious if there's anybody else that you have your eye on that could contend for that type of best hitter, quote unquote.
I think you got to hope that it's Vinny Pasquantino, right? I mean, this guy came up as a rookie, put up a 136 WRC plus, meaning he's 36% better than the league average hitter. He had 11 home runs in about 72 games, hit close to 300, had an OBP close to 400, and slugged close to 500, right? That's what he can do. But over the past few seasons, right, in 2023, he's banged up. And in 2024, he was all right. He's not a bad player by any stretch of the imagination, but he's much better than that. At 27 years old, you start to get into your kind of prime power years. So I think if you're a Royals fan, you want a 280 hitter who's hitting 25 home runs at your first base position while playing decent defense. And that would make him one of the better first basemen in baseball. Then you have India in front, then Bobby Witt Jr., who could easily win the MVP, then Vinny Pasquantino. Salvi's going to get his 30 and maybe even close to 100, and now we go. That's what you got to hope for, that Vinny is the guy as advertised.
I agree with you. I think Vinny would have the argument next to Bobby Wood Jr. in my opinion. And I think we saw last year there are not many hitters with a 108 WRC plus that you're like, man, they lose that guy in the lineup and it's a death sentence. It pretty much was that the last month of the year. As impactful as Bobby Wood Jr. is, Vinny was the straw that stirred the drink for that offense last year because he's so good situationally. He has no problem sacking his stats a little bit for a sack fly, which I didn't realize was a negative 100 WRC plus result until until Vinny mentioned it on a podcast recently, which is why I'm like, that 108 number is kind of interesting when you consider you had 97 RBIs and 13 of those were on sack flies. Different conversation, but that's interesting. Michael Massey's another name that I think can break out a little bit this year. Postseason success is not always indicative of future success, but I think he showed when he was healthy this past season and what he did in the playoffs in an unfamiliar spot, in a leadoff spot. Thought he looked really good in Baltimore, looked good in that New York series. If he's able to stay healthy for a whole year and the back thing doesn't flare up on him, year 1 through 5 feels pretty comfy. Fingers crossed still on the Vinny hamstring thing, but that's, those 5 I think can help carry a lineup, and you just need not a bunch of dead weight 6 through 9.
And I still believe in Maikel Garcia as well, who, we've seen him, defend the position well at third base, but, his quality of contact metrics, the underlying key performance indicators, like they're pointing to future success with the bat too. So you get those 6, and if MJ Melendez steps up, like this is a better lineup than advertised.
With best pitcher for the 2025 season, do you have anybody besides Cole Reagans? Because I feel like it's going to be Cole Reagans again.
Really excited for Chris Bubich. Yeah, it's definitely Cole Reagans. That would be the answer to the best Royals pitcher. Of course, we love Seth Lugo, and Michael Wacha is solid. But I'm really excited for Chris Bubich because I predicted a breakout like 2 years ago. And he shows it when he pitches, at least over the past 2 seasons. He's just rarely on the field, right? Of course, those elbow injuries, but it's a funky slot. It's tough to pick up. He throws pretty hard. He's got some good breaking balls. As long as he's in the zone, the stuff is really good. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about the Royals come October and we're saying, all right, Reagans is going to throw game 1, Lugo's going to throw game 2. And should it be Bubich over Wacha? That's what I'm hoping for this year. So I've just called for the Chris Bubich breakout over the past 2 seasons every time. And as long as he just is on the field, I think it's going to happen.
I hope you're right. I still have some level of skepticism with him moving back to the rotation. I thought he was so good in the bullpen last year that they should just keep him there. Because again, kind of you mentioned like funky lefty, but he was able to get up into the mid 90s. Some of the stuff played up a little bit. I'm curious how that's going to go. Another 6 months or so removed from Tommy John surgery. Hopefully he's back to what he was prior to the injury. If he is, then he's one of the best 5s in all of baseball. Lucas Erceg is my guy to keep an eye on with this. Not only can he close out games, he showed he can do that, but they moved him around so much like, hey, there's 2 outs in the 7th and the cleanup hitter's up with a runner on second. Go get him now. And having that guy in kind of that Andrew Miller mold, like prime Andrew Miller, where it's relief ace, you're going into the biggest spot. Having that guy is incredibly valuable. Plus, you still have Hunter Harvey and Carlos Estevez who can close out games if you need them to, if you've already burned Erceg. So I think the real value that Erceg gives the bullpen gives me the most expectation. I think he can be that guy.
Similar to the Yankees with Luke Weaver, right? He's kind of used as a weapon more than a reliever, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is he can come in the 6th if it's bases loaded, nobody out, right? And get you that ground ball. But then he can also get you those strikeouts too, and he can close out guys in the 9th, and he could probably get a 4 or 5 out save. So, yeah, Lucas Erceg is definitely one of those guys people should be watching.
If you had to pick one guy to exceed expectation for 2025 and one guy that maybe is a guy to watch as maybe underperforms that expectation, who are some names to watch for you?
I guess I hate to say the same name twice, but I'm just going to go with Chris Bubich as the guy to exceed expectations. I really think that this guy can establish himself as one of the best left-handed pitchers in this division, right? And for someone that I think will, fall flat a little bit, there isn't really anyone in particular that I'm saying, that's not someone I want to rely on. I guess I would say Carlos Estevez, even though I do overall like this Royals bullpen, but Estevez is a guy who I don't know if I feel super comfortable in him closing games for a team really trying to win the division and even build on last year. I think potentially Urseg is going to be a better arm, and I think Hunter Harvey is going to end up being a better arm. So while Estevez is probably going to get the closer role early, right? I think that was announced that he's going to be the closer.
He's going to close games to start the year.
I don't think he ends up being the closer in September. Again, not saying he's a bad reliever by any stretch. He would probably just be my seventh inning guy rather than my ninth inning guy, which more speaks to how I think about Hunter Harvey and Lucas Urseg than more of a detriment to Estevez, if that makes sense.
I'm kind of with you on that, but I'm cool with that. They gave Estevez the money to come in and close games. Like, let's see if it works. And then they showed very quickly, like, they gave Will Smith money last year to close out games. They pulled that plug 2 weeks into the season, so they have no problem shifting the roles if that's what needs to happen.
That's what I think is good.
Jonathan India is the guy that I think is going to exceed expectation this year, purely because I think just the vibes of, for 2 years, he had to listen to trade rumors in Cincinnati, that now that that's happened, he seems more freed up. I think that just like having that mentally weigh on you for 2+ seasons, that's gone now. Now he can just go out there and play ball. And he's talking about liking playing the outfield and moving around. I think hitting in front of Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be pretty fun for him because he knows, hey, if he gets on base, I'm getting a run score pretty quick. Underperform, and this isn't necessarily someone that I think is going to underperform, but relative to what they did last season, I think they might. That's Seth Lugo. He set the bar so high last year. No one coming into the year thought he was going to have a 3 ERA and finish second in Cy Young voting. Or I think now that might be what people think he's going to be. I'm not going to do that at 35, 36 years old. I think even if he's a 3.7, 3.8 ERA guy, that's still a really good 2 and a guy that's going to help win you a lot of games. So he's not going to be the Cy Young guy, but I think he can still be good. It's just, I think the bar's been set so high that people might be disappointed if they don't see it again.
I like that pick because I think what we feel good about is Seth Lugo going out there every 5th day and getting a 6 innings.
Yes.
And maybe last year it was 2 runs. Maybe sometimes it's 3 runs this time.
Yeah, maybe a quality start every 5th day. You're incredibly valuable.
He's gonna keep the Royals in the game every single time, and that's what you want from a guy like that. So I agree with you. He'll take a step back, but he's still gonna be a very solid pitcher.
Yeah. If you had to give me a record prediction for the Royals, you mentioned that you like them as a potential division winner. So I'm curious where you have a win total at a lot of different places. I've seen it around 83.5. So, and that's -110 either way. So it's not like there's a ton of favorability there. What do you think?
So my projections, the way I do them, they're often a bit conservative, right? Like, for example, the Dodgers have a win total of 105.5 games, and I have them at 102, and I haven't put a win total projection above 100 in a long time, right? Number 2 is the Braves, and they're at 96 wins, and number 3 is the Phillies, at 90 wins. So Royals I have at 84 wins, but that's one of the best in this division, right? That is tied for the winner of this division with, the Minnesota Twins, who I still think have a really good roster. The thing is why I think the Royals have the best chance of winning this division is I don't trust the Twins to stay healthy all year. And I'm a little bit lower than the market on the Guardians prior to other years, where last year I bet they're over win total. I bet them to win the division. Really like the Guardians last year. This year, I think they take a slight step back. So I have them again going over their win total. I would say I think they do 1 game better than last year. I think they're an 87 win team, and they end up winning the division with that many games.
I have them at 88 and 74. Last year I had them, like an 18-win improvement. They were way over that, but I think they can improve, and a lot of it does come down to the bullpen being way more stable to start the season. They went 17 and 21 in 1-run games, and a lot of that was due to lack of bullpen success. Some of that luck, it doesn't stay, like that year over year. It usually flips. So if you're able to flip a couple of those games in a division that is up for grabs for 4 different teams, I think they can win 88 games, although I still have them as a wild card because I'm done trying to question the Cleveland Guardians black magic. Like I'm done trying to question it and try to figure it out every year that this is the year they're going to fall apart, and then they don't. So I still think that puts the Royals very solidly in a wild card and they make the playoffs.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to go do some MLB predictions for the whole league right after this.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. it takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner impossible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Be sure to like and subscribe on all platforms on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Be sure to hit those notification bells so you know when our episodes go up. 3 episodes a week coming at you all season long. All right, Peter. So now we're going to go to Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, MVP. I want you to give me who you actually think is going to win it, but then also a sort of long shot sprinkle type guy for each as well. So we'll start with Rookie of the Year. Who do you like in the American League?
In the American League, I like 2 different guys. I know it's chalk, but I do like Jason Dominguez, at the top. The prospect fatigue is real because everyone remembers when the Yankees signed him at 16, and then, he got compared to Mickey Mantle, and then he fell obviously short of those incredibly lofty expectations. But he's still really, really young, and he's still really, really talented with the bat. And if he could just be okay defensively in left field, he's probably going to put up a 3, maybe even a 4-win season because I think the bat is really real. But the one that I think that is actually worthy of a bet is Jacob Wilson with the no city designation Athletics, right?
Oh, it's Sacramento, Las Vegas. Yeah.
They're playing in Sacramento, but when you look them up, they're just the Athletics. But Jacob Wilson is a guy who was drafted 6th overall a couple of years ago and has just destroyed baseballs through the minor leagues. I'm not saying when we're talking about destroyed, I'm not saying he's got crazy power, but this guy's hitting over 400 and he's striking out less than 10% of the time. He's walking a good amount. He's playing good defense at shortstop, and he's going to have a runway the entire year because I think that's important. Like I bet on Junior Caminero last year, just hoping that the Rays would call him up in time because I thought he was the most talented. But this year, let's look for guys who are getting legit playing time. That's why with Jason Dominguez, they're not taking him out of the lineup this year. And Sacramento, no city designation Athletics, they're not taking Jacob Wilson. So he's a guy, those are the 2 I'm looking at for American League Rookie of the Year.
So my pick and my long shot are one and the same. I think I'm going to go with Kumar Rocker. Cool. I think for the same reason you're taking Jason Dominguez, the prospect fatigue. Like, this dude's been on our radar every year since he was a freshman at Vanderbilt in 2019. Like, I do think he is that good. I think people, even though he took a very circuitous route to get to the big leagues, this was a guy that was talked about as a number 1 pick for 3+ years. The talent is there. When he's on, it's some of the most unhittable stuff that I've seen in quite a while. And and you mentioned the runway. He's going to be in the rotation to start this year for Texas. And and they're not asking him to be your 1 or 2. He's like their 4.
Yeah.
So I think just starting the year, I think it will free and easy, just let it eat. And at 20-1, I like the value of that. And I also think he has a chance to win it because I think Texas is going to be really good. Great. Who do you have in the National League?
National League, I really like Matt Shaw. Again, a guy who's going to get a ton of runway. I know we saw him early on in the Tokyo series, and, it didn't exactly go according to plan. But again, he's super, super young. And if we remember that Yoshinobu Yamamoto got destroyed in his first start back there in Korea and then comes over and has a 3 ERA, in only 90 innings. But this is a guy who's very solid defensively. And then you just look at his numbers throughout the minor league. It's almost like as he continues to go up through low A, high A, double A, and triple A, he almost gets better at every stop. It's a guy who just hits and hits and hits. So Matt Shaw would definitely be my answer for National League Rookie of the Year. A long shot that, again, he's not going to be in their starting rotation, but I cannot understand why the Cardinals wouldn't have him on opening day. Quinn Matthews is a guy at 25-1 who dominated at Stanford, but it wasn't electric stuff. It was, a guy who knows how to pitch, right? And then the stuff starts getting better and better and better. And he's been dominant throughout the minor leagues. There's no reason for the Cardinals not to have him in the rotation, but that's the reason why his odds are very, very long. So Quinn Matthews with the Cardinals, that's a good guy to keep an eye on.
I'm going chalk with Roki Sasaki. He's just going to get the chance, and he's really, really good. And when you have an 80 grade secondary pitch at 23, feels like you're going to have a pretty solid chance to be good. And, and it's also the Dodgers. Like, he's just going to get, if he's healthy, he's going to have a chance all year. I thought Yamamoto had a chance all year, even with how good Skeens was. Long shot, I like Andrew Painter at 35-1. Like, if he gets any sort of chance, and again, he's going to be lower in the rotation. There's not this wealth of expectation. Just come in and if he lets it eat, again, that's probably one of the best 4 or 5s in all of baseball. Plus, he's lower in the odds because I think there's some prospect fatigue plus the injury stuff. But he's really good if he's able to be healthy. Who do you like for Cy Young in the American League?
Cy Young, stick with my guy. I've been, looking at him all offseason, and I think we're aligned here. I think Garrett Crochet is going to be a problem.
Yep.
I had Tarek Skubal last year. And I remember when I was coming out, people were a little bit nervous because he hasn't really pitched a full season, right? And then we saw what he looked like. Crochet could have pitched a full season if the White Sox didn't start limiting his innings. And he still threw 146 with over 200 strikeouts. And we've seen in spring training, 15 innings, 30 Ks, ERA below 1. This guy with that pitching lab in Boston with their great pitching coach in Andrew Bailey and a GM in Craig Breslow, who was also a pitching savant, who saw, I think, what a lot of us saw if you're watching White Sox baseball, being like, this guy is unbelievable. So Garrett Crochet, and I'm not even looking at a long shot. I'm pushing the chips in on Crochet.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have Crochet. It's plus 450. Like it's him, Skubal, and Reagans. It's the 3 big lefties in the American League, and I may sprinkle Reagans at 10-1 just for some homer's sake.
He should be. He could easily win it.
I think you absolutely can. And 10-1 feels like low right now.
I have 4 of his autos. I bought a bunch of his carbon chrome autos. So yeah, I'm fully in on the Cole Reagans trade. It's just Crochet is just so explosive that
and
can't keep your eyes off him.
And like pitching for the White Sox and like playing for the White Sox has got to be the equivalent of like aging like a president. Like I cannot imagine what that would do to you every single day. So getting out of there, going to Boston, I think he's gonna. And he was crazy last year for a bad baseball team.
Yeah,
he was gonna go nuts this year. I think I'm sprinkling Bryce Miller because I think he's just going to keep adding pitches until he figures something out. But the mix, the stuff, I'm eventually going to be right about one of these Mariners pitchers winning the Cy Young. I had Castillo last year, or 2 years ago, I had Kirby last year. Gilbert's going to have a chance. One of those guys is going to win one at some point. They have to. They're too good. But if they do, it's going to be another Felix Hernandez. They're 10-14 with a 2.2 ERA, like because that offense sucks. NL, who do you like? Are you going chalk with Skeens?
Yeah, I know. It's just, I mean, he could do things that are legendary.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy who, he's a pitching unicorn. Because even the Pirates, when they drafted him number 1 overall, I don't even think they thought he was going to be this good. His ability to just pick up different pitches, the splinker. Right, I mean, it's
an accident, and it's
now
best pitches in baseball.
Exactly. So it's like, oh, I want to, go long or maybe pick someone else. I love Zach Wheeler. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball, but it's just got to be Skeens. But my long shot is Christopher Sanchez again with the Phillies.
Oh, that's a good pick.
Pitched you a 3.32 ERA in 181 innings last year, and he is sitting 97, 98 with that sinker in spring training. Wipeout changeup slider with a whiff rate over 30%. At 35-1, I just think those odds are not what they should be because he's a guy who gets ground balls at a 58% rate last year. But a guy like Logan Webb or a guy like Framber Valdez, they give up a lot of hard contact, but luckily for them, it's on the ground.
Right.
Christopher Sanchez is not giving up hard contact. He was in the 75th percentile or higher in a lot of those batted ball metrics like average exit velocity, hard hit rate, all that good stuff. So it's soft contact on the ground mixed in with a 20% strikeout rate from last year. But if he can get that up to 25% this year with a little bit more stuff, this is a guy who could pitch to potentially a high 2s in 180 to 200 innings. That's getting you top 5 Cy Young votes.
Oh, yeah.
So at 35-1, he's 20th in odds. Those are just wrong, in my opinion.
So I didn't go chalking with Zach Wheeler plus 750. I debated Skeens so hard because I think he's insane, but I do wonder about year 2 in the big leagues and like any sort of adjustment that hitters are able to make back to him. Plus the Pirates are going to be not very good, unfortunately.
My question to you, what adjustments do you think hitters can make?
That's also true because he had
I
a
don't know.
two-seamer and a cutter because he just can.
Because sometimes, you can look at this stuff and be like, he wasn't throwing a lot of strikes with this pitch. Like, what's going to happen? I have no idea how they adjust.
And I do think some of this is I think the Phillies are going to be really, really good. And Wheeler is one of the most, I think he's still very, very underrated as good as he is.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he wins a Cy Young. Like, I think he's like sneaky Hall of Fame because of what he's done the last 7 years and one of the best free agent contracts of the last couple of decades in Philly, considering what he's done.
Best postseason pitcher that we have in baseball right now, too.
Yeah. So that's where I'm going to go. And I think this kind of puts a stamp on his career in some capacity. I have Yamamoto 25-1 as my long shot. Again, the guy's he's so special when he's on. I just want to see him pitch a full year. And if he does, I think he'll finish at least top 5.
I like that. Absolutely.
MVP. I'm curious where you go in the American Leagues. I know you're a Yankees guy. Are you taking Judge to repeat or where are you going?
No, so one thing that I did do is I bet Bobby Witt Jr. hits leader at 8-1. He led the league in hits last year. He's not the favorite. Luis Arias is the favorite. I just think that's wrong. Like, if you're not making Bobby Witt Jr. the favorite, that's a misprice. So I am invested in Bobby Witt Jr., but in terms of the MVP, Bobby Witt Jr.'s lines are just so short. I mean, it's like, for example, on BetMGM, it's 3-1. Like, those odds just aren't good enough for me to go after it, even though I think it's 3-1 for a reason. Like, he should be that. He's the man. But I think that Vladdy in a walk here is dangerous.
The contract year is undefeated.
Yeah. And he's like 5th or 6th in odds. Like, he's not far removed from almost winning the Triple Crown and finishing 2nd. If Judge were to go down, I mean, this is a guy who can hit 320 with 45 jacks. So I think at those odds, he's a pretty good one. And then I know it's not really a long shot, but Yordan Alvarez plays 160 games and he gets into a little bit more power. I mean, he's never hit over 40 home runs, but he's another guy who can hit over 300 with 40 jacks. So I'm really looking at Vladdy and Yordan.
Yeah, this is the year. I think Bobby Witt Jr. wins the MVP.
Love it. I'm not talking you off that one.
He's gotten better at pretty much everything every year in the big leagues. And the only thing that's kind of always been a bit of a red flag is some of the base running stuff, and he's wanting to clean that up. I don't know how much he's going to steal. I have him to lead the league in triples at plus 950 because he hits the ball to right center at Kauffman and it rolls a little bit. He's getting to third. He just is. I think he's going to flirt with 40-40 this year. He's going to be a Gold Glove winner, Silver Slugger type. The Royals he's going to help lead the Royals back to the playoffs. He had one of the best non-MVP seasons we've ever seen last year, just because Judge popped 60. Of course, that's just the unfortunate reality. But he can flirt with 10 WAR again. It's so hard to replicate those types of seasons. But if there's anyone in baseball that I think can do it as a 5-tool type guy, it's him. And I'm not betting against the dude. He's gotten better every year. I think there's still another gear for him to reach, which is absolutely insane. But I think this is the year Bobby Witt Jr. gets it done. The Royals get their first MVP since George Brett in 1980.
Hell yeah.
Long shot. This is really long. Wyatt Langford at 40-1. The dude's just a top tier freak athlete that, again, probably can flirt with 40-40 if he's able to get for a full season.
That's I mean, he's a bowling ball of talent.
Yes, and he doesn't look like he should be as fast as he is, and he's insane. So
yeah.
that would be one that I can. I at 40-1, I'll throw a couple bucks on that.
If he puts it all together, it could be dominant. When you're talking about 40-40, I mean, that's not out of the realm for Wyatt Langford either. I mean, the 40 stolen bases is maybe not, but he's got 40 plus home run power. He can, run with the best of them. Who knows if it translates into that many stolen bases, but he's got that level of speed.
Yeah.
He can play a really good corner outfield if everything comes together. Yeah. I'm not talking you off that one either.
NL, who do you like?
In the National League, I think that Skeens is not a bad play for a super long shot, but and the reason I'm going with the long shot first is there's no shot I'm going against Ohtani. I mean, there's no way. I mean, he's the greatest player I've ever seen in my life, and if you're telling me that he could potentially pitch this year, I mean,
yeah,
it's just it's so boring, of course. But
and I think
what's amazing about Ohtani too is that he's in a very short list of guys with 3 MVPs. If he wins a 4th, he stands alone.
It's him and
Barry Bonds has 7, but nobody else has more than 3. I think Ohtani's going to get there. I just think this guy's on a historic pace, and we're going to be talking about him as the greatest of all time. So when I'm in the midst of potentially that, I'm going with Ohtani. And then for my Cy Young pick, again, if Skeens throws 200 innings and he has an ERA below 2, which I am not counting out, he's going to get MVP votes. Even if the Pirates are, but again, if he's doing that, the Pirates are probably hovering near wild card-ish, maybe 80 wins. That's why the odds are so long in his Everly Zone. There's a very large chance that he's not actually going to win it, but with that much potential, give me Ohtani, chalk, but long shot, I think Skeens could be that guy.
I thought about Ohtani chalk, but and you talk about it, he's the best player I've ever seen. I think he's going to go down as the greatest to ever do it, but the greatest player doesn't always win MVP every year. That's why I think it's going to be Bryce Harper.
Love it.
I picked him last year or the year before, a year further away from the elbow injury. If he's able to get some of that power back and kind of go along with my Cy Young pick, I think the Phillies are going to be really good. So that's where I'm going to go. And then Churio at 35-1 for the Brewers. I think he could be. The Brewers are going to be good. It kind of falls into that Cleveland Black Magic mold. Like, I'm not going to question what they do. They're just going to win.
Yeah.
Division winners and wild card. American League, career division winners, and who you have as the 3 wild card spots.
So in the American League, I have the Red Sox winning the East. I think they overtake the Yankees, from last year. In the Central, I am going to go with the Royals. And then in the West, I'm actually coming around to the Mariners. I think they have the highest floor. Everyone wants to pick the Rangers. It's so much potential, and I'm not going to talk anybody off that. But for me, I think the Astros take a little bit of a step back, and I think the Mariners kind of fall into 87 wins. That ends up being enough to win that division. So those would be my 3. In the East, the Red Sox, then the Royals, and the Mariners.
Okay, so you already have the Royals win the division, though, so who would that other wild card be?
Oh, and the wild card, too, of course. Then I would probably say the Yankees and the Orioles are 2 of the wild card. And my 3rd, I keep going back and forth on this one, but I'm going to say that the Astros get that last spot and sneak in.
So I'm going Red Sox, Guardians, Rangers for the divisions, and then wild card Yankees, Royals, Orioles.
Love it.
I have it.
Yeah.
NL, what do you got? Division winners and wild card.
National League East, I'm going with the Braves. National League Central, I'm picking the Cubs, but I don't like it. I could get convinced of any of these teams. I mean, I really like the Reds as well as a long shot there, but I'll pick the Cubs, but again, not very confident in it. And then the West, of course, the Dodgers. But if we're talking about wild card teams, I think it's going to be the Phillies, the Mets, and the Diamondbacks.
So I got the Phillies, the Brewers, and again, I didn't like anybody in the NL Central. I couldn't figure it out. I just kind of threw a dart and figured it out. Dodgers, obviously, wild card. I got the Braves, the Diamondbacks, and the Reds. I think I'm just going to continue to fade the Mets. I can't do it. I know Juan Soto's awesome. I can't do it. And I'm going to stick my neck out for the Reds. I think they're going to pitch enough that they're going to be really solid. I think Brady Singer is going to help them quite a bit with the addition of a Burns or Louder later in the year. I think they'll
Definitely.
World Series. Are you going? Are the Dodgers repeating?
Yeah, they're going to be the first to repeat since the Yankees. Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to pick them, but I got the Dodgers over the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox, Crochet wins the Cy Young. Bregman is fantastic in his first year over there. Devers does his thing. Duran does his thing. And the Red Sox get a lot out of Walker Buehler as well. This is a guy who has dealt with injuries, but in 2021, he was one of the 5 best pitchers in the world and looked great in the playoffs, has looked great in spring training. I think he's going to be big for them. Of course, Tanner Houck too. So I'm going Dodgers over Red Sox.
Same argument that I made with Ohtani. The Dodgers are one of the best teams I've ever seen constructed, but the best team doesn't always win every year. I'm taking the Phillies over the Rangers. I think they get it done. It's so hard to repeat in this game. I think this is the year the Phillies get it done. I think Bryce Harper gets his ring, which would be so great for baseball for him to get that. And I know that the Phillies have some holes in some spots, but if there's any GM that's going to go out there and do whatever they can to make that roster better at the deadline, it's Dave Dombrowski. So I'm going to trust that they get it done. And I think the Rangers get back. I think Bruce Bochy is going to get them back going after a weird year between underperformance and injury. I think they're going to as well set up as anybody in the American League to get back.
The Rangers could win 95 games to go to the World Series or do even worse than last year. They're big boom or bust. So if you're pro Rangers, I agree. Take them to win the World Series because the top end projection for them is limitless.
Yeah. Peter, this has been awesome. Thank you very much for your time. I'd love to get you back on at some point during the season for sure. But I really appreciate it. Plug all of your stuff real quick so all listeners can go and subscribe to what you guys do.
Absolutely. So I'm one of the co-hosts of the Just Baseball Show, which you can find Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, where we cover baseball 4 to 5 times, a week. I also write a daily article for my bets on justbaseball.com, and you can follow me on X at Peter Appel 23.
Some of the best national baseball content out there. Be sure you guys go subscribe to Peter and Aram and Jack over on the Just Baseball Show. Check it out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll be back later this week to preview the series against the Cleveland Guardians and get ready for opening day. I'm excited, and I'll talk to y'all next time. Take care.